clear. This meeting open. Apologies. Have we got Councillor Ward online?
No.
We haven't. Are they going to be?
Tim's just coming online now.
They're planning to be.
So we might just wait to get them on. Tim's.
Yep, he's joining.
By sharing Tim's computer.
I might have to close down and reopen. They're on Teams. Are we getting them on there? Are they coming? Do we need to get someone here, Adrian?
No, it's nothing from this end, actually.
Okay. It did come up on our machine, didn't it? So
Nothing's come up here.
they're on Teams, so they're not on. Just checking what came up. Oh, well, we just need to proceed without if we can't. Did it come up on your machines or?
Yeah.
That they were there, so do we need to get someone from IT to have a look at that, or I think we should just proceed.
Keep going, I'll just find out.
If you stay
All right. Okay. So we've maybe councillors Fulton and Ward. So I'll move for the chair that we accept an apology, seconded by Councillor Mealings. I'll pop back. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, clear that carried. So hopefully we can get the technology to work. I just want to mention the passing of Gareth James, somebody who worked for our council for a number of years but was instrumental in his leadership role with Trans Waste and Gareth passed away last week and it's his funeral tomorrow. Before I have a moment of silence, just Councillor Brian, I know you Gareth, do you wish to say anything?
Well, just very briefly, Mr. Mayor, it was an absolute privilege to work with him. When he was with our council, there were 52 landfills or dumps in operation in the Canterbury region. The vision was 52 would become one regional dump. Dennis O'Rourke, then Christchurch City Councillor, put together a team, took Gareth away from our council. It sounds awful, but and we ended up eventually with state-of-the-art Cape Valley. And Gareth was the engineer behind it, and put it together, and he did win some numerous awards for his efforts as far as that is concerned. But as I say, it was an absolute privilege to work with him for many years, and sadly missed.
Thank you, and thank you for those comments. And I believe that in recognition of the service that they've renamed a particular part of the location of the Waipara platform, so which is significant in itself. So for that service, which was significant to not only our area but to Canterbury, could we stand and observe a moment of silence? Right, thank you. Any conflicts of interest for reporting? Confirmation of minutes. We have minutes from the meeting on the 21st of May. Prepare to move. Councillor Goldsworthy, second. Councillor Cairns. I'll put the minutes. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary. Declare that carried. Is there any matters arising from those minutes? Alright, so we now come to reports. So item 4.1, which is the development contribution policy. So, look at you're doing it, isn't it? Right. Thank you. Who's speaking to the report? Yes, welcome, Tim. We have Tim. Can I just clarify, Tim, you and Jane are present now, is that correct?
Only just.
Okay, right.
Here, Anna, everyone.
Awesome.
We're just very, very faint.
All right, thank you. If you could just put yourself on mute, and we will come to you at various times. Let me know for putting your hand up by way of the hand function on Teams. All right, thank you. So the no number of apology. All right.
This report relates to the DC policy and schedules. It seeks approval for the 24-25 DC schedule and policy. Both were consulted on under the LTP, to which staff received one submission. The DC schedules reflect budgets, and there are 5 recommended changes following consultation. These reflect budget updates. Most of the DC policies recommended to be adopted as per the consultation material. However, recent advice in terms of the DC policy is highlighted that by not charging a DC for a granny flat, otherwise known as a secondary dwelling or minor residential unit, at the time of building consent, the council misses the opportunity to collect any DCs in situations where a granny flat is later subdivided to its own lot. For this reason, staff recommend that half a DC be charged for granny flats going forward.
And just to add to that, you'll be aware of the recent proposals to allow up to 60 square metres to be exempt from having a building consent or resource consent. As part of that proposal, there is included some options on development contributions in recognition of the load that this puts on infrastructure. So as that proposal works its way through legislation, there may need to be further updates to the policy to reflect what's in legislation, and if and when we get to that point, we'll bring something back to you to update the policy as required.
So you're going to edit the wording in here because the way it reflects at the moment, is there going to be some further reflection on that wording? Yes. Okay. Perhaps you'll raise it at the right time. Right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
It is important to note that the draft policy attached to this report does not reflect the report's recommendations. The current draft policy attached does not include provision to charge any DCs on a granny flat. Therefore, if council chooses to adopt the recommendations as they are written, staff will update the policy to incorporate charging half a DC on granny flats after this meeting. Or, if council choose to adopt the draft policy as it is attached, council will need to remove or revise recommendations D and E. Questions?
Thank you. So the proposed wording now, what are you suggesting as the update here, just to be clear?
As we heard that we haven't got the exact wording attached, but basically we just need to introduce some words that instead of saying granny flats will not pay any DCs, that they will pay half a DC at the time of building consent.
Well, we probably need to get that wording clarified because it's sitting in our recommendation now. So, and I would like that subject to a briefing and subject to a further report to council, because we haven't debated that yet around that. So perhaps while I call for questions, there could be some reflection on that wording, please.
Perhaps I can just clarify, the resolution as per the paper is what staff are recommending. The reference is to recommendation D&E. They actually would, that would be your instruction to staff to update the policy accordingly.
Well, it's not quite how I think it should be worded. So
I think the confusion exists.
Thank you.
Around the 90 square metres currently in the proposed district plan, we're increasing that from 75 to 90 square metres, and it has to capture any second dwellings. You can see at the moment there's a bill going through that exempts granny flats specifically, which is attached to a property up to 60 square metres. So the intention of our policy is to capture any second dwellings, but not granny flats which are on a property of 60 square metres or less.
So the wording that's proposed there mentions granny flats. Why don't we add greater than 60 metres squared? Then that's clear. Is that going to? Because I think that's where the clarification needs to be. At the moment it says i.e. granny flats. Well, it would mean that 45 would apply from 60 metres to any granny flat, whereas I don't think that's necessarily the intention.
The staff intention was that any granny flat would be captured, but I think that maybe this does need to come back to a briefing, so maybe you look to move recommendations.
Well, if we do D and E, and then just where it says in brackets, i.e. granny flats, i.e. granny flats over 60 metres squared, and then added to the end of that, subject to briefing with the council. Subject to a briefing with the council is probably the best way to move that forward at the present stage. It's only to capture, as I understand it, it's to capture dwellings, secondary dwellings greater than 60 metres squared. So the difference between 60 metres squared and say 90, that's the bit that may involve a DC if that's what the council decides to do. Is that correct?
That wasn't the intention. I think the intention was that it would capture any granny flat regardless of if it's regardless of the size. But
I might just have a brief discussion with the CEO.
Sure.
Just adjourn for a moment. Do we have to do this? I tell you, this is getting messy, and I'd like for us to resolve this at a different stage. So let's just remove D&E, and because it's going to get untidy, and I'll speak in debate for my rationale for that. All right. Any further questions? Councillor Meetings?
Yeah, well, the resolution that you're talking about removes the granny flat discussion from this, which I favor, because I guess the questions I want to ask: how often does a granny flat get subdivided into its own title?
Yeah, I don't think we don't have hard data on it, but we see them come through. I would say maybe a dozen times a year type thing, something of that order.
As you guys are probably aware, I have one on my property, and we share a water connection. I know when my parents are having a shower, you can't subdivide that. So I just wonder just how possible it is really in reality on the ground for these things to be subdivided.
Let's just, it'll come back to another meeting on this matter.
I see where you're getting with it, but I just kind of thought.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Meetings. Councillor Redmond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What is the current policy on granny flats in terms of DCs, and what, if anything, happens at the time of subdivision currently?
So at the moment, the policy is written that DCs aren't charged at the time of building consent, however, they will be charged at the time of subdivision consent. And the reason that we brought this proposed a change is because we received advice that if you're going to charge DCs, you should do it at the time the demand is created, which would be at the time you build it, not at the time you subdivide it. So that means we shouldn't charge at the time of subdivision, we should charge at the time they're built. However, that then, I think where it needs a bit of debate and further work is some people think you should be allowed to build a granny flat only if you're going to subdivide it off, then you should pay because then you're a development, not a house agreement. But our understanding of the LGA is that you shouldn't do it at that legal subdivision stage, you should do it in the demand period. So that's why half was kind of a middle ground, half of DC was come up with as something in between charging and not charging, it's charging half. But I think the new suggestion makes sense. It's obviously not a simple decision, so it should come back to the group and work. It would be a good way to resolve it rather than try to work it out.
Okay, any further questions? I'll move from the chair the recommendation is there with the removal of D&E. Is someone be the second? Yeah, just to say that I agree with our development contribution policy, and I appreciate that staff were trying to get ahead of where the new government's announcement, which was last week on this matter, which I actually think is a very good idea. That removes the need for complications, that enables a straightforward process for anyone that wishes to build a second dwelling up to the definition that the government had proposed, which is 60 metres squared. In our new proposed district plan, we did spend quite some time, and I remember it was quite some time on this discussion about what is the right size for a second dwelling. And 90 square metres is where we arrived at. Now that's obviously subject to process still, so, and how we arrived at that is Ryman roughly was 86 square metres, so we rounded up to 90 plus garage. So we thought that that would meet the requirements of at least a couple of bedrooms and some living space. We also looked at the distance between the dwelling and where the granny flat or second dwelling is, secondary dwelling, and we removed that at the time. And also the provision that used to exist that you couldn't have more than one kitchen under a roof. That also was something that we looked to remove. Simply because if something meets the building code, that should be the arbiter. And I just don't really want to get under people's roofs any more than we need to. The building code dictates that. And if it meets that, it's fine as far as I'm concerned. I do have a lot of sympathy with, and it's something when we do our submission on this, is we actually like to do a bit ask the government how they arrived at 60 metres square, and would they consider increasing that size? Because 60 metres square isn't particularly big, and I realise that there's maybe that's the intention, but I'd like to have a bit more understanding how they arrived at that, and would they be open to a greater size. How we treat development contributions at that point is better. We need to discuss as a team, because the government's philosophy is to make it simpler. I certainly would like where we head, if possible, to make that as straightforward as well and not complicated. And you could see the mess we would have got into if we'd have tried to resolve that today without a good reflection. So in general, I do support this and the reasons for that, but I've just highlighted the point around the granny flats discussion. Deputy, you wish to speak?
Stay status quo until such times with clarity from the government on where they're going and what we've got written down in negotiations between us. That's all.
Thank you. Any further speakers? I'm not going to respond to myself effectively or the Deputy Mayor, so I'll put that. Hold on, Councillor Fulton. You wish to speak?
Yes, we both agree that 60 metres is too small, and we'll be supporting the motion.
Thank you. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Contrary?
Aye.
Declare that carried. Thank you. So we now come to item 4.2, which is the adoption of council's long-term plan. So I ask Reid to come forward. Thank you, Greg. Welcome to the meeting. We're good for you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. The adoption of the long-term plan is one of the most important tasks within the election cycle. Along with the district plan, the long-term plan helps shape the future of the district. To me, the long-term plan was really about two things. First, it sets the direction for the council in terms of how it's going to manage its infrastructure over the coming 10 years. And it also sets out the levels of service it plans to deliver over the 10 years. But second, it's about maintaining the council's sound financial health. Good financial health is really important as it protects ratepayers and provides stability if things happen. Good financial health means we're in a good position to respond if and when things go wrong. And I've been involved in long-term plans since 2006. If I look back, lots of things have gone wrong over that time. The global financial crisis in 2007-8, and so the 2009 long-term plan was prepared in the aftermath of that. In 2012, we were still responding very much to the effects of the earthquakes. In 2021, we were dealing with a global pandemic. And now in 2024, we're dealing with the financial shock of rapidly rising prices and interest rates. What this shows is it's hard to plan for the future, but it also shows how important it is to do so. Being in a good position when things go wrong is really important. Long-term plans always involve compromise and trade-off, and the council needs to strike a balance. Not everyone will agree with the balance that's been struck, but what I see is a plan that seeks to maintain infrastructure assets in good condition, to deliver high-quality services to the community, and is backed by a financial strategy which will maintain the council's sound financial health. It does require rates increases, but much of this is driven by factors that are outside of the council's control and have affected councils across the country. To not lift rates, as included in the plan, would not be consistent with the council's long-standing approach to prudent financial management. The plan before you now is the final plan and reflects the input of councillors, community board members and the community. All this work is done within the context of the Local Government Act, which sets out requirements around consultation, and we comply with that act. But our consultation has been extensive. We started back in 2003 in July with consultation around community outcomes. This was workshopped with stakeholders, with council and community boards, and then input from members of the public. When it came to the draft long-term plan earlier this year, there was a full communications, marketing and engagement programme to promote community involvement. The draft LTP was promoted across all media, print and digital, and also through radio channels. There was significant media coverage and lots of publicity. Our engagement database was emailed to over 5,000 residents, almost 5,000 opened that database. On top of this promotion, councillors and staff ran 6 workshops across the district and spoke to hundreds of locals about the plan. In the end, over 3,600 visited our engagement page and 330 people so submitted on the plan. Overall, the level of submissions would say was in line with expectations, in line with previous long-term plans. So to sum up, I'm pleased to present this finalised plan for your adoption. In your considerations, remember this is a 10-year plan, but we're only setting a budget and rates for 1 year. Beyond that, we know things will change and the council will need to adapt to those changes, but this plan provides a sound base for your future decision making. And just to confirm, we have received the auditor's opinion about an hour ago. So you're now in position to adopt the plan, including the auditor's opinion, which is a requirement of the Local Government Act. The opinion is an unmodified opinion, although it does include an emphasis of matter in relation to the uncertainty of NZTA funding for the Eastern Link Road project and the Scooby Bridge project. We don't have certainty of funding because NZTA need to go through those processes before we know. It's an emphasis of matter in the other way, modification. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Goldsworthy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, slight minor technical request. On page 6, where it mentions changes due to deliberations and consultation, would it be prudent to include the pushing back of the provisional budget for South Rock?
So that's page 6 of the document itself? Yeah. I'm sure we could do that. We've got within the recommendation, the ability to make minor changes. I'll consider that minor change.
Okay. Any further questions? I'm going to move the recommendation. Second with Councillor Redmond. And then just sort of terrifying, that will be just what Councillor Goldsworthy mentioned, it would be considered under minor edits, correct? Firstly, I just want to acknowledge the extensive work that has gone in well over years, piece of work that has led to the position we are today, where we are to adopt our long-term plan. Now it's not the point where we go back and revisit that. We've already had extensive hearings, we've had hearings and we've had deliberations on that. Where we've landed is where we are today. But I'm not going to say I like 9.39%, which is where we've landed. I don't think any of us do. But it's about presenting a responsible position. And the local government average is around 16%. And so we use that as the measure. How we've got to where we've got to has been an incredible piece of work. There has been extensive profile. We've gone through and identified where we can find savings, where we have deferred works, and that was considerable in our discussions and consideration that was there. I'm very proud of the work that our staff have done in preparation. That's right across the organisation, because while we make decisions on that, the lead up to that is done by the staff and the excellent direction that our Chief Executive provides, and also understanding where the appetite of the council is in terms of its support. He got the message from us very early in the piece when the first cut came at around 19, almost 20%, that was not going to fly, and that was not where we were sitting. Other neighbouring councils have found this a particularly difficult time, and I think in all my years in local government, which has come up to 20, I think this has probably been the most difficult that I've certainly encountered over that period. Its extra added difficulty was the insurance and the uncertainty that we will not know till probably tomorrow whether we've landed in some areas, because if we are the market is at present, and our brokers have certainly made us well aware of the challenges that are there. It's something we're going to need to consider going forward, but it's important that we do have cover. We have been subject to earthquakes, weather events, and I think if anyone understands how the world of insurance works, our community does when they've gone through those exercises themselves. We've got to have more than adequate cover. We've got to make sure that our assets are protected. The audit opinion and being unmodified, we're one of the first in the country to be audited, and I know that puts an undue pressure on our team. And Greg, can I just acknowledge yourself? You came in midway point of this exercise, and I think your expertise and your knowledge and understanding has certainly we're extremely grateful for that, and I know that it's provided essential support to our Chief Executive, who was our Finance General Manager, and still provides extensive leadership in that space. But to you and your team, I think you've done an absolute sterling job. In our business is very complex. It's not as straightforward as running a standard business. There's many moving parts. We're subject to legislative change, as we saw earlier, and the consequences of where that might lead us in terms of policies. So we have a lot of moving parts, and also a community that have fair expectations that they want a certain level of service. We get it in terms of not wanting to put an undue burden on our district, and in the coming years, next year, we hope that our increase is in the fours, and that's what we're indicating so far. That's what it's likely to be over the coming period of time. But if we can get it lower than that, we will certainly look each and every year as we do for savings. And I put that challenge out to all colleagues all the time, and our CEO very much welcomes that. If there are savings, let's go through them. And we do sit down through our briefings and we look for those. And so far, where we've got to, there has been savings identified. They have, and just consequences of decisions where we've landed today. So I am very happy to recommend the adoption of this long-term plan for the reasons of the extensive work that's gone in, the consultation, the feedback we've had from our community, and this is where we're at today. So we're in this position where I'm very proud of the work we as a team put together on this, and I have no hesitation in support of it.
Just a point of clarification for me. Just indeed, do we need to be taking out the word notes and adopts the audit opinion, given that we've had it now, or does it matter?
Just leave it as notes? Leave it as notes.
Leave it as notes.
And, sorry, the seconder was Councillor Redmond. Do you wish to speak?
No, we're receiving.
Thank you. Further speakers? Councillor Williams.
Yes, I'm a wee bit concerned. We've gone out for community consultation and at 5 major scenarios. On 3 of those major scenarios, more than 60% of people did not want the council to proceed with these situations. Even some of the community boards also said the same thing. So I actually got a wonder why the council will even go out for consultation if they don't seem to listen. And that is proved by the figures that the staff have given to councillors on what the public wanted, that took the time to consult. So I'm very, very concerned about that. The Mayor just mentioned something about the challenge of efficiencies and all that drama. Twice so far I've emailed the CE and the Mayor wanting to have a workshop on efficiencies of the council, because there are some efficiencies lacking out there, I believe, and I believe we need a workshop. That actually hasn't happened. It got turned down, so I was very disappointed. 9.3% increase has been touted as one of the smallest around, which on a percentage it is, but the consideration is we're already dearer. Yes, we're already dearer than some of our local councils to start with, and that's been proven out, so that was very disappointing. We've got a petition from the one of the locals here about listening to the public. Most of the people didn't think the council listens to the public here. More than twice the people, or pretty much twice the people on that petition said the same scenario. There's no significant discussion on the proposed increase of 4.4 million in staff costs, even though this amount represents more than 50% of the proposed rate increase. There seems to be confusion on how many new staff are included in the 24-25 budget, an extra 2.2 million. CEs,
Mr. Mayor, do we actually have proof that there is that those figures that we were given are wrong?
Don't believe so. No, I think the evidence that came through contradicts that position that Councillor Williams has just stated. I wonder if the Chief Executive could clarify that for us, please.
I suppose I'll just pick on one of the figures that's in the correspondence and the conditions. I think stated there we've got an allowance of 5.9% on staff salaries. I can confirm that in the budget, the allowance for the 24-25 financial year has a number of 3.1, which we're expecting to settle on the 1st of December, which is an increase in staff salaries of 1.81%. So that 5.9 is incorrectly being reported by the person in the position. Thank you.
Thank you.
carry on, I've got actually evidence here from staff reports, so saying 23 more staff.
Well, you've just heard that answer, suggest you move on, Councillor.
I've got evidence here.
Would you please
there's
move on?
23 more staff there, although the CE said there's only 9 staff been budgeted for, but the budget allowed in the long-term plan is actually for 23 staff. That hasn't been addressed at all in the signing off of the long-term plan. So,
point of order. If there is evidence of that, I would have liked that table beforehand, and I would also like that tabled for us to see. A piece of paper in debate is not evidence to me that that is the case.
I have said to Councillor Williams to move on from that point because it's been answered. If you could move on, or
I'll move on to that point then. There's a lot of people out there struggling paying your rates at the moment, and it doesn't look like we've actually taken them into consideration when we're doing a lot of these scenarios. There's needs and there's wants. The needs are important to have, but the wants at this particular time, I don't think we can actually afford a lot of those wants because some of the ratepayers just can't afford it. So I think that hasn't taken into consideration. So I'm very not happy with the way all this proposal of the consultation process, and I just do not know that the council haven't listened. That's been borne out by the actual figures that are given to all of the councillors here. That out of 3 of those 5 options, the ratepayers do not want to proceed. That's the fact, and you can't deny that fact. And we can't get a point of order on that because that is fact. That is actual genuine figures given by staff to all the councillors. So I will not be supporting this here.
thank you. I have Councillor Fulton, Councillor Bryan, and the Deputy Mayor. So Councillor Fulton, or Councillor Ward, whichever it is.
It is Councillor Ward, and could I really emphatically deny? I understand on a petition that is going around that there is a Joan Ward on that petition. It is not me. Please make sure that that is correct and not in any way referred to by me, because it is not correct. What I want to say is I want to just reiterate what Mayor Dan has said. Tim and I both approve of all the hard work that the staff have done over the year. It hasn't been an easy LTP to put together, and everyone has worked under extreme pressure, especially Jeff and his team, and they've done a magnificent job of making sure that our level of service is continued to our community, and that we're looking after our community, especially in a growth district, that you cannot just stop spending money. You have to make sure for the future of the community that you invest in infrastructure and to be a safe place to live in. And so I totally applaud Jeff and his team for the wonderful work they've done, and I really think that 9.39% is something that we should be all very proud of. So well done, team. So Tim and I will be supporting this long-term plan. And here's Tim now. Thank you.
Thank you all. I'd just like to say that my understanding of this LTP is that we are putting forward allocations, considerations to give us options and opportunities for the future over this 10-year period. We have a policy which has us within our debt thresholds. I think our financials basically reflect the economy of the day as it is now, and some of the financial pressures that we face, particularly in the last 2 years, the next 2 years to come. 10-year allocation. We have options to move this district forward, to move our council forward. Let's take this opportunity, and for that reason I support the adoption of this LTP. I'd just like to add to that, if I may, that as far as the issues of staffing goes that Councillor Williams has addressed, I think I've been in 5 meetings so far. I think we've tabled the response 5 times. We've got our response. I don't need to hear any more. Let's move on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Ward. So next I have Councillor Bryan, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Blakey, and Councillor Reid. Councillor Bryan.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. If somebody would have put a piece of paper in front of me that says, do you want an increase in rates? I would take emphatically, no, I don't want an increase in rates. There seems to be a perception that we do want to increase the rates. We have to increase the rates. That is just the reality. It's a job that we get elected to do. And during the course of this LTP, we've attended workshops, we've attended briefings, we have had ring files sent to us left, right and centre. We have had a draft LTP that's gone out for consultation. People have submitted their views on the draft LTP. We have read the submissions that have been sent back, and we have listened to those who chose to come and see us. Now, to hear it said that we were not listening because we disagreed is, as I said last week at a meeting, that it's an absolute insult to me personally, and I guess to some other colleagues around this table, that because I disagreed, you infer that I was not listening. Now that is completely incorrect. I do not want to increase the rates. The reality is, I feel, because for the reasons that have been outlined, we have to increase the rates. Also, during those submissions, an awful lot was said with regard to our debt. And yes, our debt is not good. It's not as bad as others. But then I look back over my 26 years of sitting around this table, two new swimming pools, Dudley and Oxford. Somebody in the community said they weren't affordable. Don't do them. And in fact, Dudley got put off, despite being a third of the way through planning. It was put off, and 4 years later, it went from 7.4 to $9.3 million by the time we finally got around to building it. Rangiora Town Hall went up to $13 million in 9 years of that took to get it over the line. So $36 million to get our sewage out of the Southbrook, Cam, Kaiapoi, Waimakariri river systems into the ocean outfall. $36 million, well not an extra, it's all part of the $36 million, to get Kaiapoi sewage out of McIntosh's drain, leading into the Kaiapoi River out into our ocean. And so we've now got the Eastern District Sewage Scheme, which cost $36. Now that was debt funded. It had to be. Rangiora was getting its water supply from the Ashley River. It was insecure water supply. $16 million, and we've got an insecure supply coming across from Kaiapoi. That cost $16 million on the Rangiora ratepayer to pay for that. It was not cheap, and it was debt funded. And look, Mr. Mayor, you know, as I say, 26 years sitting around this table, I can go through an absolute massive list of things that we've had to do to keep our district as good as it is, which attracts people wanting to come and live here. Now, the last one we had a major over was the stadium, because everybody thought the stadium was, well, not everybody, some felt the stadium was unaffordable. We shouldn't be doing it. And look at the facility we've got now and how well used it is. It's astronomical. I.e. compliments left, right and centre for the vision that was shown by a council in going ahead with that stadium. Now, there's things being said with regard to the new proposed library and what have you, but at the end of the day, don't sit there and say that I haven't listened because I disagree with the position that you're taking, because nothing could be further from the truth, and that suggestion utterly, completely insults me. So obviously, Mr. Mayor, from these comments, I'm going to be supporting your motion.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I agree with Councillor Bryan. I just look at the figures that were presented by Greg before. Over 5,000 people that were had been consulted on the database. 3,600 locals who have visited and commented on the website. 330 submissions with 1,000 submission points. Now, where I want to go with this is exactly what Councillor Bryan is saying. Just because 60% of that 330 fronted us to say we do not agree with what you're doing does not make it a majority. These same people, most of them, talked about the fact that it's non-democratic. Well, I'm not sure if you work those figures out. If I just do some simple subtraction, which apparently I'm not a businessman, so I'll have trouble with it, you're down to about 4,000 people who have commented on the district plan, plus all the groups that I attend.
Excuse me, in the public gallery, can you please be quiet down there? Thank you. Don't mind being here. If you'd like to have a conversation, just pop out of the room. Thank you. Sorry, Deputy Mayor.
The groups that Councillor Mealings and all the rest of us attend. And we're appointed to different groups to get opinions from people and make sure that we take them on board. And then we listen to them. That's what we do. That's what I've done in my 21 years sitting around this table. I've been involved in the public for a long, long time. And I take every one of those and listen to what people have to say. I don't agree sometimes. I am a ratepayer in this district. Do I want higher rates? No, I don't. But the facts of life are that you have to live in a growth district with a level of service. Everyone I talk to, I ask them if they want the level of service cut, and the answer is no. They do not, as long as you can deliver the service you've got for less money, but you must keep the service the same way. I mean, that's a pretty hard task to do, isn't it? I mean, you can't do that. It's not how life works. I've heard people talk about, well, libraries aren't essential services. Well, yes, they are, and the 4 wellbeings that we run, they are an essential service. Not only are they an essential service, cut out a library and see what happens. You're actually cutting off the service to the people that you're actually trying to keep the costs down on. A lot of the people who go to a library or to a swimming pool are the very people who can't afford to go down the bookshop and buy the book, or go to a private swimming pool to pay the retail rates to go swimming. And I'll hear it from everywhere, but I never use the pool. Well, no, you may not. That is true. But around democracy and that majority of building those, and we were appointed to make those decisions, of which we have made, that is what they are about. That is what democracy is about. That is what we do around this table. And I just want to say that you need to be voting for this. This is something that is 10-year plan. You have another shot at this next year, you have another shot at it in the 3-year plan, and then so on and so on each year. And we ask for submissions every year. We don't have to. In fact, the government advises we don't, because it saves us money not to do that. We made a conscious decision in this council to ask every year what it was that our ratepayers have input into what we do. But I'm sorry, 330 submissions does not make a majority of the views of our community. The collective does.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Blackie.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, good points there. Talking about wants versus needs. We could go to a 0 rate rise. We just do it, and what happens? as Neville's been alluding to, your levels of service, your LOS just gets cut. You cut out all sorts of stuff that our people want and expect, because that's what we've always given them. And to come up with 9.3, we've already been told quite accurately that most councils are looking at 16% rise across the country. Some are in the 20s, some are in the 30s. And I'm pretty sure that the inflation, as it affects us, is pretty close to 9%. Those lords and masters sit in Wellington and tell us inflation's 4.7. I can only assume they haven't bought anything for the last 12 months, sitting there on their six-figure salaries, because I can't accept a 4.7 rise. It's way above that. And it's a well-established fact that inflation for councils is always more than inflation's out there for the general public. You put all those figures together, and I'm quite confident that 9% is a fair figure for what it's going to cost us, more than it cost us last year to run this place. We know what those costs are. Construction costs across the country are up 28%. Our electricity bill's up 15% on last year, somewhere around that figure. The eye-watering insurance bill that came in, which we hadn't anticipated. We'd anticipated a rise, but not the eye-watering rise we got. You put those figures in there, and to start at 16 and pull it down to 9.4 is actually extremely good financial management. Yes, ratepayers are hurting out there, but if the average rates in our area are 3,300, if you're struggling at 33 to pay 3,300. And several percentage of them are, and that's why we have a rate relief program to help them. If we were to go to 9%, that adds about $6 a week. And okay, you're struggling, and $6 a week is significant. But if we were to go to zero rates, for instance, and leave the rates where they are, they're still struggling. They were struggling with a no rate rise. So as people have commented, it comes back to balance. We have to balance a sustainable progress with the majority with the minority, and often the minority make a lot of noise about things. Everyone complains about their rates. I complain about my rates bill when it comes in, but you've got to have a balanced portfolio of where we're going. Our debt ratio has been commented on in the media as being far too high. Our debt ratio is about 10% of our assets. If I go and buy a house for 600k and take a 60k mortgage out, I would think that's absolutely excellent financial management. We're about the same. Our debt ratio is 10% of our asset. That is not something to be. That's something to be applauded, not something to be criticised. So yeah, it's a plan, and I think Robbie made the comment, or Neville, it's only a plan. It can change. If the economy goes to hell in a handcart, we change it next year or the year after. We've pushed out a lot of things. We've pushed out the library project, we've pushed back the big car park, we've pushed out some roads, and of course the roads are subject to government support anyway. We've pushed out our cycle trails, we've pushed out Southbrook. We've reduced the money we put into the NES, the new NES program. The only project we're going ahead with is Pegasus Community Centre, and that's been promised to them for 12 years. And good luck to anyone going down to Pegasus and telling them that they're not getting that. So we have been financially prudent. We've done the minimum we can get away with. We've got to live with a 9% rate rise, so I'll be supporting.
Thank you. Councillor Redmond. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to endorse Councillor Bryan, Deputy Mayor Atkinson and Councillor Blackie's comments, which took words out of my mind. Perhaps we've been reading each other's minds. I too have listened to all the submissions and read the submissions. And as Councillor Bryan said, just the fact we may not necessarily agree with the submission doesn't mean we haven't listened to it or taken it into account. The government has asked councils to exercise restraint in the tough economic times that we're currently experiencing. We hover around a technical recession, and I went and heard Tony Alexander the other night, former BNZ economist and now independent economist, and it's his view the worst is yet to come, and this year will be tough for many. So we understand that, we appreciate that. We heard about 76 submitters in person, or in my case, because of COVID, I just sat in from above and listened remotely. The theme to me that came through was the state of the economy was very important to all the submitters, I believe. And I occasionally go and get groceries with my wife, and I'm astounded at how little you get in a trolley these days. We're in an inflationary climate. Insurance premiums, my personal one's gone up 25%. Groceries, I reckon they've gone up 50% from looking at petroleum. Interest rates have increased, and of course, council rates. People do have a choice with some of those other matters, but we actually, as a provider of services, have a monopoly. You can't shop around who you'll pay your rates to. So we have to be conscious of that. And I believe we are very conscious of that. All these changes affect everyone, and more particularly those on fixed incomes. And there are, as we're an ageing demographic in Waimakariri, those people are going to be hurt. They're hurt whether our rates go up or not. They are going to be hurting this year. The other interesting thing was the submission statistics are not votes, nor a referendum. But they did suggest to me that we do have to exercise restraint, and the time is not right for building expensive facilities, such as the library or civic offices, but we do need to signal those. They are going to be required at some stage. They're not going to go away. And the remainder of submitters largely aligned with the preferences that we went out and consulted on. I wondered what would be the effect of deferring some of the work in the options we went out with. The library and Southbrook development has been pushed out to year 4. And I believe that came as a result of hearing submissions from people who wanted restraint. That means the next council will have the opportunity to review those in 3 years' time as part of the next, rather ironically, 10-year LTP. So it'll be up to that new council to prioritise and determine when those works may occur. Even if we did adopt the options that Councillor Williams referred to, I wondered what the increase on the level of rates would be. And I can tell you in the first year, it would be 0.13% less. And on a typical property, that's around $5 a year. By year 4, the rates would be 0.18% lower, which is about $8 a year. So to say we haven't listened to people, that's what we're actually talking about. Those people, if we'd adopted their views, would have saved between $5 and $8 per year over the first 4 years. So why I support this recommendation is, and I must admit when I went into the deliberations I was thinking, how can we get rates down even lower? I got over the line by the fact that some of those big projects were put out into year 4 or later. So it's a question of timing. Just bear with me here. Some of the submitters were preoccupied with debt, and to reply to some of those block submissions, and I'm not sure if Joan Ward in another forum was one of those. It's not our Joan Ward, I'm pleased to hear Councillor Ward. This council is currently about the 25th ranked council in relation to the size of our debt. By population, we are 16th in ranking. So it seems to me we're doing particularly well by comparison. And we're also one of only 18 councils with Standard & Poor rating of AA or greater. So you could say we're punching above our weight, and I think that's why this is such a good place to live. We have addressed earthquake-prone buildings, water quality, as Councillor Bryan mentioned, sewer ocean outfall, for example. We've spent a lot of money, and Councillor Bryan articulated those very well, so thank you, Councillor Bryan. There are good graphs in the LTP document, the infrastructure and financial strategies, showing the projected debt repayment. We often get accused that we have no plan for repaying debt. We do have a plan. It's just that people publicise the view that suits their particular belief.
Just Councillor Reed, yes,
I'm almost finished. Fine. Sort of wind up quickly, Mr. Mayor. I get the message. There has been a petition circulating on social media. I best describe it as a flop. There were no names associated with it, nor has it been presented to the council under standing orders as it could have been. It was widely promoted by a sovereign citizens group and had 35 shares. Of the almost 6,000 views it had, only 620 people chose to tick and sign it. So I think that's hardly compelling. As a councillor, I have to balance affordability with residents' ability to pay, the delivery of service and infrastructure and levels of service that are required. And that's why I support this recommendation. My concerns for the next 3 years have been met, and I believe we've cut our cloth to suit the circumstances. There are much more we could do in better, more financially affluent times. And I'll just sow a seed. How about an extension for the main power stadium? Another couple of courts would be great. But now is not the time. Thank you.
Councillor Reed. I was going to accept a late, late submission or late submission. Councillor Keynes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly this process has been somewhat challenging, to say the least. As a business owner, I've been a business owner for 20 odd years. And when it comes to putting up prices, you're always very, very concerned as to what's going to happen with regard to your business. And I look at when we sat down and we listened to all of the submissions, we heard all the submissions, we read all the submissions. One of the things that stood out for me is that they kept saying, we want you to cut the rates, but we still want additional expense on whether it be libraries, community centres and such like. We're a council of growth. We have to be visionary, we have to look to the future. We have to work out what we're going to prioritise where we spend our money. And I congratulate the staff on the huge amount of work that they've undertaken to actually get the rates down to a level of 9.39. My concern is that it's still very, very high, but as others have said, when you go to the supermarket, when you go and buy your coffee, everything has gone up by a considerable amount of money, and this council is not immune. Subsequently, but in terms of the library, I look at there's over 10,000 people visit our libraries every month, and I consider that that is certainly obviously an area of growth. People want to have more and more services in our libraries, so subsequently like to run your library, we need to do an expansion there, because people want to see more than just books, they want to see 3D printers and such like. As I said, this is a visionary council. We're wanting to look to the future, we're a growth council, and hence the reason why I'll be supporting this motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Keynes, Councillor Meetings.
Thank you, thanks.
Not quite.
Look, there's been an awful lot of things been said, I agree with most of them. The purpose of local government, I check this out sometimes, but again, I'm doing it today. Section 10(1)(b), purpose of local government is, 1A says to enable local, democratic local decision-making and action by and on behalf of, that's us, what we do here, communities, and to promote the social, economic, environmental, and cultural well-being of communities in the present and for the future. It doesn't say kick the can down the road, and it doesn't say just pipes. For well-being, that's enshrined in the laws to why local government exists at all, things that we must do here, decisions we make around this table. We're a growth council. We are one of the fastest growing council areas in the country. And with that comes population growth and need for more services, more infrastructure, more expenditure for the services and the infrastructure. And council's not a business. We are not a business. We hear this a lot that, oh, you know, you must be run as a business. Well, councils provide public goods. Roads don't make money. Water doesn't make money. Sewage does not make money. Libraries don't make money. Pools don't make money. Parks don't make money. Does any of that rubbish does not make money? None of that makes money. If this had to be all of these had to be given for the public, I just lost my track. If these were private sector provided services, nobody would pick it up because they don't make money. They're public good. Therefore, we're here to administer those things because we need them. We need to turn on a tap and have water. You need to flush the toilet and have it go somewhere. You need to be able to have a road or a footpath or a park or, you know, heaven forbid, a library or a pool. You need those things. So we looked at some of these big projects that we've had. I think there's a lack of understanding about what outer years mean. Outer years is when we push those out so that they're not subject to a detailed budget and plan this year or the next year or the next year, but the years after that. And there is a bookmark because, for instance, with our roading, we don't know what or if, you know, what kind of funding that the NZTA Waka is going to give us. We don't know if that's going to be affordable or what that's going to look like. So we're going to sit and wait and see what happens. We're going to let some organizations sit and do a bit of fundraising first to see if they can actually stump up with their side before we kick anything in. We need to actually get the lay of the land and see how things take shape before we decide if and when and how we're going to invest in them. But if they're not in the plan, they're not in the plan. Putting something in an outer year is a bookmark. You can't apply for funding for something that's not in the plan. If it's not there in an outer year, it's just not there. And we have come down from a start of an over 19% projected rates rise to 9.39. That was through dint of a heck of a lot of hard work over about 6 months. So no, the public may not have seen or heard all the work that went on to get to that, because there was no way that this council was going to present that to the public and say, hey, what do you think about 20% rate rise? Nobody wants that, I sure don't. And that wasn't good enough. So the staff went back, sharpened their pencils, and we came to this, which is actually, it's 939, but gosh, it's certainly a heck of a lot better than it could have been. And I think, given the current economic environment that we're working in, which, you know, we as council here are not immune to, I think they've done a darn good job, and I am supporting this long-term plan. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Williams. Lucky to ask Councillor Goldfield.
Not sure if lucky had much to do with that. I don't believe there's much more I can contribute other than my colleagues have already proceeded. However, I would like to remind everyone humbly that being part of the 150th recently, it reminded me of my own limited impact on the world and the fact that we're just backing holders for this organisation, which will be outliving a lot of us. And every time we go through this process and we consider the future, we're very keen to listen to those who have a voice to speak now. but we should also potentially consider the voiceless as those to come. And we're building a foundation for a beautiful community with people who want to live here. So I encourage you all to support this motion.
Right, very well put, Councillor Goldsworthy. My right of reply, I just want to acknowledge the excellent comments from your team. Thoroughly endorse those. These are passionate colleagues, you all are, and I'm proud to be the leader of this team. And if anyone, and the implication that we somehow have the wool pulled over our eyes and these people do not stand up and make it clear, is just living in dreamland. This is an amazing team. We have been through an extensive process. And Councillor Williams, you mentioned about efficiencies. Yes, you emailed me late in the piece. I went back to you and advised that every meeting there has been an opportunity in which for you to raise these. I opened the opportunity for you to raise them with the Chief Executive. Still waiting. Still waiting. So, to come here and say that is not correct, and there is an opportunity at every workshop or every meeting we have in which to raise ideas of how we make savings. That's what we're all focused on. Absolutely focused on. I realise you didn't get to the last budget meeting and you had a very good reason for that. But to say that we didn't listen and we didn't consider submissions is absolute rubbish. And actually, I agree with the remarks that were said before, frankly insulting. I listen to each and I read each and every submission. You know, the fact that we agree or disagree on points, at the end of the day, that's what democracy is about. And I do listen. I'm up the street all the time and I hear all manner of viewpoints that come to me. And then through the door to my office, get people that want us to, as Councillor Redmond advised, want the extra courts on the stadium, want a hydro slide at the swimming pool, all those matters, which I'd love to be able to do, but we just, frankly, are not able to afford it at this point in time. And that's why we push projects out to outer years. The points that were made about us being a growing district, we are. And one of the consequences which we are still having to live with, zero rates are just not possible. Around 2% we have to find every year to progressively pay down the earthquake loan. And the cost of the stadium and the other projects Councillor Bryan's mentioned. This is to ensure that we could afford to pay those over a long period of time, so that it wasn't mounting the debt in just today's ratepayers. $100 million is the cost it cost us for the earthquakes. That is a cost that sits on our balance sheet and is part of our borrowings. And just bear in mind, those that criticise the debt need to understand that experts have come in here. And in fact, the Chief Executive and myself presented to the Finance and Civic Expenditure Civic Committee yesterday, and they were talking about infrastructure strategies. And they were saying, oh, 30 years would be a minimum. We said, well, we have a 150-year infrastructure strategy. They just couldn't believe it. And so actually drilled into what it's about. And they, the Chair mentioned that it's showing real leadership for our community. We are a AA rated council twice by the Local Government Excellence Program. It's come in here and reviewed our organisation. More than fit for purpose. We are a leader. And we're very proud of that. It is not something that you easily get, and we are the only council in the country to achieve that. Our financial performance, AA, by Standard & Poor's. Again, we are a high-performing council, and they take into account the level of debt that you have versus revenue in your relative position. These things are independently assessed, and that's where we've come in terms of their ranking. So I'm very proud of where we're at. Am I happy that we're at 9.39? No one is. And we've heard from colleagues the case that we've put for that. And ultimately, we've done our best, and we will continue to do our best each and every year to try and identify where there is always opportunities to make savings. As I said, we're hoping that we're in a position of fours for the coming years. If we can achieve that, from what I'm hearing from others in the sector, that would be a miracle. But Jeff is a miracle worker most of the time, just not this year quite, but he did get us down from the nearly 20%, and I do recall very distinctly the message that came from this table. And he went away with the staff across the organisation and identified the savings and the program that was one that was going to be more realistic. So that's what we're presenting here today. And I value the feedback of our community each and every single day. The petition that was mentioned before, by the way, I haven't seen it. We were only emailed a summary of it the other day, so I have no idea the names and whether it was correctly how in which those names are put together. But I take it in good faith and certainly note that we've been advised that that's the number, but it's never been presented here to the council. So we have no way of actually formally going through and identifying the method behind it. In any petition, there has to be a methodology and it has to be right, because it wouldn't get accepted at Parliament. And that's the standard that we operate under. And there's standing orders, and there's every opportunity for the petition to be presented here, and it hasn't. So anyway, colleagues, I think that's enough. With that, I now ask us to come to vote on the adoption of the long-term plan as per the recommendation. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary?
No.
I declare that carried.
Aye from us, please.
Aye from Joanna. I thought you might be from your comments.
Aye, yes, aye from us.
Thank you. I declare that carried.
Will we have a division, Mr. Mayor?
You may.
What's that number called?
I think we'll have a division actually. Yes, thank you. Mr. Chief Executive, can you conduct a division?
Okay, we're voting on items 4.2, long-term plan adoption. So, Deputy Mayor Atkinson.
Aye.
Councillor Blackie.
Aye.
Councillor Bryan. Aye. Councillor Hens.
Aye.
Councillor Fulton.
Aye.
Councillor Goldworthy.
Aye.
Councillor Mealings.
Aye.
Councillor Reuben.
Aye.
Councillor Ward.
Aye.
Councillor Williams.
No.
Mayor Gordon.
Yes.
10 yeses, 1 against.
Thank you. I declare the motion carried. All right. Item 4.3. I suspect this will have less debate somehow. Please come forward. Thank you, Greg. And again, can you please convey our thanks to your team and all the team for their work. I know they've still got work to be done on this, but also I should have recorded before our thanks to the governance team as well. Make sure our meetings function well and we're looked after, so thank you. If you can pass it on to the teams, that would be appreciated. All right, item 4.3, which is pages 122, 132. Thank you. Who's leading that? Yes, Lee.
Good afternoon. The report is a requirement of sections 23 and 24 of the Local Government Act and is required to set rates for the 24-25 year by way of resolution of council. Any questions?
Thank you. Questions of colleagues? All right, so we've got a, thank you, series of, they are a series of recommendations, but we'll take them all as one. So we don't need to take these separately, do we? No, that's right. We have in the past on some, just double checking that. So, moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Bryan. Do you wish to speak?
Just to say that I know these tables are not that easy to work out, so thank you for your efforts there, and it's good to see them in the fractions of sense that they are too. It actually does help with the putting them into perspective.
Thank you. Any further speakers? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary? Declare that carried. Thank you. So We now, I have no questions under standing orders and there's no urgent general business under standing orders. Now come to matters to be considered with public excluded. Hello, can we help you here? Oh, sorry, hello. No, you're taking some names down, huh?
Yeah, sorry. I'll just introduce myself real quick. My name's Maxine Jacobs. I'm a reporter for the press. Today's my second day. I grew up Kaipoi, grew up like Heartsea, Ngāti so this is who I am. I'm going to be reporting on Selwyn and waimakariri for the foreseeable future. I'm really excited to be back home. It's cool to be back in Rangiora again. My dad lives Kaipoi, everyone's around here, so.
Oh, wow. Well, it's lovely to meet you and welcome to day 2. And I'm sure we'll get to meet you over a period of time, but thank you for your interest in being here today.
Yeah, so sorry, I don't know everyone's names super well. I know yours because you want to call me Dan, but I just, my glasses don't work as well as I think.
That's right, you just grab those while you need. We're going to go into public excluded, so if you need any further note, just grab them now.
Yeah, thank you.
And then
So
just
sorry.
put, no, we're going to have to ask you to leave at the moment, so.
Oh yeah, but I don't know.
I don't mind taking it at the moment, we can.
I'm sure some of you know my family, so you can talk to my dad later. Oh, Todd Jacobs.
Alright.
Yeah. He's a strong person.
Okay, so you got what you need?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, nice to meet you. Thank you. Bye now. Alright, next to be considered with a public excluded, for the reasons outlined, I move for the chair that we go into public excluded. I have a seconder, Councillor Goldsworthy. I'll put that, all those in favour please say aye. Aye. Contrary, hear that carried. So we're now in public excluded. Yeah, Adrian, yes, just a moment. Need to make sure record is